Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of your Daily Guides, the series where I dive into in-depth guides and walkthroughs of games like Honkai Star Rail, Zenless, and Wuthering Waves. With the 2.8 patch finally out, we've got a crystal clear picture of what this patch is bringing, and honestly, the lineup is way more stacked than a lot of people expected. Chisa's debut was already big news, but seeing Phoebe return beside her in Phase 1 sets the tone immediately, and then Phase 2 drops the double rerun of Phrolova and Cantarella, which is where things get really interesting. Because, yeah, all three of these units are strong in the right hands, but with 3.0 right around the corner and the meta about to shift again, this is one of those banners where your pulls genuinely matter. So instead of rushing in blind, let's walk through what Phoebe does and whether her signature weapon is worth the extra investment, and how her overall value holds up in the current landscape, especially if you're trying to future-proof your account. All the timestamps are down in the description if you want to skip ahead to your favorite part, and if you haven't already, make sure to join the Discord. But with that said, let's get into it. With Phoebe, because her rerun is the one that's going to make a lot of players stop and think. She's a spectral resonator who can flex between main DPS and sub DPS depending on the form she's in, but her real star power is how insanely well she props up spectral frazzle teams. Her outro straight up doubles spectral frazzle damage with up to 100% amplification and even throws in a 10% spectral shred on top. That combination is still top tier utility in 2.8. But here's the thing, her value is almost entirely tied to whether you own Zani. If Zani is on your account, Phoebe becomes borderline mandatory. She's the only character who can pump out enough frazzle stacks for Zani to reliably max out her forte gauge, which basically means Phoebe is the piece that lets Zani function at full power. That synergy alone is huge. But realistically, most players who want Phoebe want her for Zani, because that's where she reaches her peak value. Now, weapon talk, because signature weapons always look tempting, but not all of them are must-pulls. Phoebe's signature is absolutely her best in slot, no surprises there, but what really makes it interesting is how it helps not just her, but your spectral frazzle core as a whole. The extra 30% frazzle damage amplification on her outro is huge for Zani teams, so if you're committed to that setup, pulling the weapon is actually worth thinking about. If you're not running her in that comp though, you don't need it. She performs perfectly well on String Master or Rhyme Drape Sprouts, so don't feel pressured unless you're fully invested in maximizing Zani's damage window. At the end of the day, zooming out to the patch as a whole, 2.8 is honestly one of those updates where every banner has something valuable to offer. But who you pull completely depends on what your account leans toward. Chisa is the obvious universal pick because she's the new core for DOT comps, and those teams are going to explode in popularity. Phrolova is probably the safest rerun pickup thanks to how flexible and ridiculously powerful she is both on-field and off-field. Phoebe is phenomenal, but niche, thriving almost exclusively with Zani, and Cantarella falls into a similar lane where she's incredible if you're building echo skill teams and pretty underwhelming outside of that. So none of these reruns are bad, but they are very specific, and with 3.0 dropping right after 2.8, saving until we know what's coming might be the smartest move you can make. But if you do decide to grab one of them and you already have the ideal teammates to support them, you're gonna get a ton of value, no matter what. Anyway, that's the breakdown. If you've got thoughts, predictions, or if you're pulling for any of these reruns, let me know down below. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.